Okay. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about the project, for the class, and with your group, I hope you guys are at least searching for some kind of data set. Okay. Um, the project is purposely very, very open-ended, and the reason for that is I want to give you guys a lot of freedom regarding what kind of data you decide to use. The only requirement I have for the data is that it has to be a data set about which you have some knowledge or interest, okay? Because I know, like I didn't force this upon people the first time we did it, and I got a bunch of projects where I think it became clear to me that the people were just very unfamiliar with the kind of the data territory in that regard. So a popular data set on Kaggle is like this wine data set. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Are you? Yeah, there's like a wine classification data set or something, right? And it's fine. You can use the wine data set, but somebody in that group better be knowledgeable about wine, okay? Somebody needs to know the difference between like a Merlot and a Chardonnay and a Cabernet and all sorts of these things. I don't know if you want to have like study sessions on this, but I don't want it to just be kind of blindly like, okay, here's some numbers and here's some rows and let's just, I don't know, do a group by and stuff, like somebody needs to there should be some interest and familiarity. It will make your thing much better. I don't where's the data science Venn diagram? Okay, here is when somebody says, what is data science? Where did it go? Why is this not opening? Okay, so this is this is what we can offer you, okay? We can offer you math and stats knowledge, and we can also develop your hacking skills. So this class is kind of focused on the hacking skills. All of your other stuff is math and stats knowledge. You have a question?
Why is there a danger zone?
Why is there a danger zone? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so your 100 series and your and all of that. That's your kind of your math stats knowledge. The 102 series is your hacking skills in terms of your coding. Okay, we're not able to provide the substantive expertise that comes from your interests outside of statistics directly. Okay, so the danger zone is like stuff and hacking skills in terms of like you can do stuff in Python, but if you don't have the math and stats knowledge, you might be doing analyses that don't make sense, or analyses that are misguided and will lead to wrong conclusions, such as you decide to fit, like in your 101A class, you learn regression, and you also should have learned like model diagnostics, right? Like if you see the what do you call it, heteroscedasticity, and the variances and constant and stuff like that, that's a sign that your model's not a good thing, right? If you don't have that math statistics knowledge, you might just fit a thing and you'll say, oh, I've got some predictions, and let's go with this. Okay, so that's why there's a danger zone, because you might just fit models and say, all right, I didn't get an error on the computer, so maybe it's good. And so you need to have some stuff. Okay, without the substantive expertise, we're kind of in the realm of just straight machine learning, where we've got data and then we're going to just try to fit models and stuff and see what it can predict. And then traditional research is probably like your 101B class, where there's less of this emphasis on coding and stuff, and your traditional. So anyway, data science is kind of in this thing, and if you, I guess I want somebody with at least a little bit of substantive expertise, as in, and that just comes from picking a data set that you're interested in, right? Like if your interests are sports, like if you're into basketball, you can pick a basketball data set and you'll understand the nuances of, you know, what these points, you know, what these different columns mean, right? Like in baseball, there's like the WAR rating, wins above replacement and stuff like that. And I guess that exists in other sports and stuff. And, you know, if you're unfamiliar, it's a terrible data set because you have no idea what any of these columns mean. So my encouragement is to search, find something at least where someone is interested, someone in the group, okay? You might have a group of two. At least pick something that at least one of you is knowledgeable about, okay? Otherwise, it's hard to know. If there's always a element of common sense in terms of like, does this make sense with what I understand about the world, right? Like if, you know, like in the flights data set, I don't know much about airplanes, but I do know it's impossible for the landing to have happened before the departure. And so, you know, that was important in detecting, you know, perhaps, you know, when we imported or we created new columns, we made a mistake, okay? And if you aren't aware of just some of these things, it's a lot harder to catch mistakes that just don't make sense. So anyway, I don't know. So yeah, there's lots of good data sets on Kaggle, okay, but also perhaps to the detriment of I don't know, you know. Don't feel like your data set has to have thousands of rows, okay? That's not a requirement, okay? If you have, I would say 50 observations is probably gonna be the lower bound for what I want for as far as what you can do. Probably, you know, I would say a few hundred to a few thousand is probably ideal. A few hundred to a few thousand is probably ideal. If there's something that really interests you, but the data is hard to find and you're only getting sample sizes of 50, that's fine, okay? But, you know, lower than 50, you know, we might start running into, you know, a few issues. You'd have to, there's kind of a thing. If you have smaller data sets, you've got to rely more on your traditional statistics tools, okay? And as your data sets grow larger, you're going to rely more on the machine learning tools, okay? And so, you know, a few hundred, you can probably use either or and fit something there. Okay. So anyway, please find a data set that interests you and not just one that was convenient because it was available on Kaggle. There's a lot of good things on Kaggle, but okay. Let me see what else. I'm working on the project requirements. I'll probably have that document done, and we'll go over it on next week on Monday with all of that. But there's there'll be, I don't know, a few parts to the project. Yeah, we'll talk on Monday. But you'll write up a report. You'll make a little slide presentation and record a little video of it. So, okay. So today I want to talk about some data kind of transformation, group by tools, the multi-index. These are things we encountered when we were looking at the NYC flights data, but I just kind of want to delve into those functions a little bit more, or those features of Pandas a little bit more, as I think this is going to be one of your most frequently used things in Pandas. Okay, so here I'm creating, just manually, I'm creating a series with a multi-index, okay? So here I'm asking for 9 randomly selected integers, and there's 2, if you look at the index, there's 2 levels of the index, okay? The first level is AAA, BBB, CCC, and then the second level goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so when I ask for it to be made, we have this, okay? And it goes 5, 8. Our values are random integers from 0 to 10, or 0 to 9. And you can see AAA, BBB, CCC, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then if you ask for the index there, it will tell you there's 2 levels, an ABC level and a 1, 2, 3 level. And then the labels, this is a lot like, it encodes them as integers, much like factors in R, you know. And factors, if you say, if you take a factor object and you do as.integer, you can see the underlying values. And so here, you know, the A's correspond to the zeros and the B's are the ones and the C's correspond to the twos. It gets a little bit confusing because we've got numbers here and numbers here, but you know, they're offset by 1. Okay. And with that, you can call, you can use the .loc locator or accessor, and it will pull out everything at index B, okay, 500. And then you can also use the location accessor and supply kind of both levels of the index. Here we're saying we want everything and value 1, okay? And so that's going to pull the 5, 5, and the 1. You know, and you can, I mean, you can specify. I gotta put these in quotes. And this will pull the B0 and C, B2 and C2, 0 and 7. So things like that, you can access that, okay? And again, taking a look at our data, you can call unstack, similar to tidyr's spread, and it will produce a data frame. So so we have that. If you unstack it and you take a look at the index, you know, the index corresponds to the rows, and it's no longer a multi-index. It's just ABC. So this is a series, okay? A series with a multi-index, and after you unstack it, now that it has columns, it's got to be a data frame. If you stack will unstack and stack are like inverse operators. So here I've done data unstack and I get this data frame, a 3 by 3. Okay. You know, we can ask data.unstack.shape. Okay, 3 by 3. And we can call for data unstack stack. Okay, so this takes this data frame, which this is the result of data unstack, and then we can call stack on it, and it stacks it back up. Okay, it's kind of funny seeing it this way, but it's just kind of the pipe operator, right? You just kind of link the output data.unstack. Unstack's output is a data frame that's 3 by 3, and now we are stacking that 3 by 3 data frame back into a series, and we get this. Okay. So this and this are equivalent. Data is equivalent to that. So this is, we can look at our original data. And so here we've got A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3 as our index. You can swap levels, and what it will do is it will make 1, 2, 3 the outer index, and the A, B, and C the inner index. Okay. When you call swap level, it preserves the original order of things, but I mean, you can swap level and you can call the dot location accessor and pull for ones, and it will pull out the ones, and you can also ask for, you know, the A's and things like that. So that's no problem. This stuff still works. You might want to sort by the outer index, and so if you do swap level, you can call sort index, and it will sort them accordingly. Okay, so. All right, but again, data remains unchanged. Okay, and so if you want any of this stuff to save it, you have to kind of capture it. So you have to save it. So here I've swapped the levels and sorted it, and so that brings the inner index to the outside part, and you have that. Okay. So here is data. If you call sum on data, it will sum up the, well, it's just a series, so it'll sum up the values in the series. Okay. So again, we have two levels of indexing. We've got the A's on the outside, the letters on the outside, and the numbers on the inside. You can call sums based on each index grouping. So here you can say data.sum level equals 0, and it will sum on, you know, the first level of the index, the A's, the B's, and the C's. And so it'll say A is 5 plus 8 plus 9, so that's 22. And then the B is 500, so that's 5 and 14. Okay. You can also sum on level 1, level index 1, which will be the 1, 2, 3s, and it'll kind of group them that way, and it'll give you 11, 15, and 15. So you know, these are just kind of your regular grouping summary values. So, you know, things like sum and mean and standard deviation and variance and I don't know, whatever else you have, but they're there. Okay. We've kind of looked a little bit at this, but I just the idea of stacking and unstacking, these are again similar to gather and spread in R. Okay, so if you're used to tidy R's gather and spread functions, you've got stack and unstack. The difference here, though, is that in Pandas, it relies on the column index and the row indexes to power the gathering and unstacking, or the stacking and unstacking operations. Okay, so here I'm creating a 2x3 data frame, and the row index will be alpha and beta, and with the name letter, and the column index will be 1, 2, 3. What are these? The cardinal numbers, the words, whatever they are. Okay, so we've got. So if I stack these, what will I get? When you stack,
a multi-index.
You'll get a multi-index. Yes, you can read the comment there. Well, okay. How many?
Six rows.
Yeah, we'll have 6 rows. Okay, 6 values in a series, and it will have gathered, basically, or it'll stack these columns 1, 2, 3, and we'll get alpha and beta on the outer index, and then the 1, 2, 3 forms the inner index. Okay, so it goes 0, 1, 2 gets stacked there, and 3, 4, 5 gets stacked in there. Okay, and then unstack. If we unstack this, we get back what we had here. you can, so when I stack them, I have this, okay? By default, unstack will unstack based on the innermost index. But we can unstack based on, you know, whatever level of the index. So what will data.stack, which is this, if I call unstack 0, it's going to unstack on the first level of the multi-index. And so how will that differ from this?
It's just the transposation.
Yeah, we're going to have alpha and beta up in the columns, okay? And so yeah, it'll just be the transpose of this exactly. So we've got, so it preserves the 1, 2, 3 here, and then the alpha and the beta get put into the columns, okay? And if you don't want to unstack based on the multi-index 0-based indexing, you can also specify if your index, multi-index or whatever has names associated with it, okay? Which isn't always the case, but you can unstack based on the name of that thing. So unstack based on number, and then the numbers will form the columns. All right, here is here we are. I'm taking two series with the letters A, B, C, D, and then here we got C, D, E, okay? And then, and you can concatenate them. Normally when you concatenate them, they just kind of get pasted together like this, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. And you know, now we have an index with duplicate values, which Pandas allows. It's not preferred, but Pandas allows for it, okay? But if you concatenate these, you can also provide the argument keys, and it will create a multi-index when you do that, okay? So using the argument keys when concatenating, doing concat on series, concat series, will produce a multi-index. Okay. So when you unstack this, okay, it's going to do its best. It's going to, okay, well, here's a question. Will the unstacked thing have 2 rows or 5 rows? So when we unstack, it unstacks the inner index and makes the inner index columns. So we're going to have 2 rows and then 5 columns, okay? And it will fill in nans for values that are missing, right? So there's no level 2 or 2 in the A or B. So we get nans on those things. So this, you know, here we have a data frame, 2 rows, 5 columns. And if you ask what the index here, it just has 2, and then the columns, yeah, A, B, C, D, E. All right, so we have the columns and the index, but they don't actually have names. Okay, and then stack will undo this unstacking operation, and by default, it filters out the missing values. Okay. So this is, and it's almost what we started with, but it's a little bit different, right? What happened? We started off with integers, but when we unstacked them, it had to fill in missing values, which cast them up into floats, and then when I stacked them back, it got rid of the missing values, but now that they're floats, they're floats. So just you know, these are like, I don't know if this is going to cause any problems, but you might be like, oh, where did these dot zeros come from? You know, if you got integers and you throw in a missing value, it's going to make them floats. Okay, and then you know, if you want to keep the fact that they're missing, like if you're going to stack the thing, you can use drop NA as false. All right. But this was a lot more messy. I was just following the book example in the book, but okay. There's a data set. You know, I gotta upload that data set too. Is that in there? I guess I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, so here's a data set. If I read it in, there's it's just a bunch of numbers in here. Okay. This is what the this is what it looks like. Okay, so we got 1959, quarter 1.0, real GDP, real, I don't know what all of these things. Some kind of financial, I don't know, population, something about America, I'm assuming. Here we can create, we're going to use these columns year and quarter to create an index, all right? And the period index, so you've got all sorts of options for time-based indices in Pandas, okay? And so like when you think of time-based indexes, you might be thinking, you know, let's just use like months or like just use dates, okay? And that's totally fine. But you might also want to do weeks or months or quarters, and there's all sorts of options here. And so you can look at the help on period index, and you have all of these things, even minutes and seconds as far as these things go. So here we're going to specify the year and the quarter, and this creates periods. Let me just show you what the periods look like. Okay, and so here we've got 1959 Q1, 1959 Q2 for like, you know, quarter one of 1959, okay? We're gonna just look at maybe just 3 of these columns, okay? Whoops. And if you kind of just if you say re-index based on these things, it'll basically drop the other columns. Well, not, yeah. Okay, so here are the periods. The book chose to do this, to do 2 timestamp, okay? So this is of length 203, periods is length 203, which matches up with the rest of the data set. 2 timestamp, what this will do is it will just change it from 1959 quarter 1, and then here I say change it to a timestamp, which is going to make it a date, and in this case, if we say end, it's going to be 1959 March 31. You can do start, and it'll change it to 1959 January 1st, and then the next quarter will be 1959 April 1st. I'm just following along with what this book by Wes McKinney did, and it says, you know, Q1 1959 is going to be translated or, you know, encoded as 1959 March 31st and 1959 June 30th. I guess that's fine. All right, and then we'll just set that to our index. So we're going to take our data frame, data, and which is currently this, or actually now that we've re-indexed it and kept only those columns, we're going to set the index to here, and so this is now the head of my data. Okay, so my index is titled as date, and this is going to be kind of corresponding to quarter 1 of 1959, and then because for the columns we just chose these 3 columns, this is what we have. what will happen if I run stack? On this. So this is what data looks like. And if I just run stack on this, what am I going to get?
Get the dates under the most.
Yeah, so we'll have 1959, 0331, real GDP 2700, 2710, 349. And then it'll be 1959, 0331, INFL, okay, influence, I don't know, okay? Inflation. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, and then 1959, 0331, unemployment, okay, and then it'll be 1959, 0630, real GDP, 1959, 0630, inflation, all of that. Okay, so that, you know, that's what we get. All right. See, if you're not familiar with your data, you have no idea what we're looking at, right? Okay. All right. So if I, this is what we have. If I do stack.resetIndex, okay? So when I stack it and I reset the index, what happens, okay? What's gonna happen, so this returns a series, okay? When I do stack.resetIndex, it's gonna turn everything into columns and create a new index that starts at 0 and goes 0, 1, 2, 3, and we get this a data frame here, okay? And you can tell we got data frames versus series because when you print out a series here, it looks like this, and when you look at a data frame, it, I don't know, gets this pretty formatting here. Okay, so reset index basically just takes this thing and it gives names to everything, or make columns out of this. Like if I ask reset index shape, okay, we've got 609 rows and 3 columns. Okay, and then and because we had a series that didn't have a name to it, it just gives it this default name of 0. So we're gonna call we're gonna just ask it to rename, and we're gonna rename the column, and we give it the dictionary as far as like when you see the 0, change it with value, and we'll rename the column there. Okay, so now we got this, and that's what we have. Okay, so here is our data in kind of long form, and then we can undo all of this work that we've done by running pivot. Okay, so you know, if the data is in quote long form, you can undo, you know, change it to wide form with pivot. Okay, and so pivot is like unstack, okay, except, so here's, why can I not call just unstack? Why did I have to do pivot? Because we don't have a multi-index here, okay? We don't have a multi-index. The index here is just, you know, the numbers here. So if I just did long data dot unstack, it takes all the columns, all right, and it doesn't know what to do, right? It doesn't have a multi-index. It just in fact, unstack seems to have actually stacked them. Okay, it doesn't even, okay, so unstack doesn't work because kind of the stacking and unstacking is powered by multi-index, or if so that doesn't work, okay? But pivot will will accomplish this, okay? And pivot, you basically specify the index column, and then what is going to form the new columns, and what's going to form your values, okay? And in this case, or here, let me link in the help for Pandas pivot, data frame pivot documentation. Okay, you're going to provide it the name of the index, the name of the columns, and the name of the values. Okay, and in this case, it just so happened that the values are named values in our current data frame. Okay, so we're going to say take the date, make the index out of that, take the item, and pivot those into columns. That's what we have here. Okay, and again, you know, if we compare this to head, we basically just undid all of the that effort of turning them into long form data. Okay. Okay. The other powerful thing we can do in Pandas is using group by operations. Okay, so here I've got a data frame, and I've got a column called key 1 and a column called key 2. Pandas doesn't know anything. Okay, it just sees this as an index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as an index, and these as column names. It doesn't know that this is like grouping information. Okay, but you just tell it something like, I want, let's look at column data 1 grouped by key 1. Okay, so 5, 11, and 9 are in group A, and 12 and 8 are in group B. That's all it says, okay? And so you can then call mean, and it will say the average of 5, 11, and 9 is 8.3, and then the average of 12 and 8 is 10. So these are kind of your, I think we're accustomed to seeing these in like dplyr, okay? You can also just call group by on the entire data frame. So here we kind of subset and said we only want column data 1, but here you can just do it on the entire thing, and it will produce the mean for all numeric columns. Okay, key 2 got dropped because it says I don't know how to calculate the mean of words, which is understandable. And then, okay, and then you can further group by key 1 and key 2, okay? And so in this case, you're going to have a group for A1, a group for A2. And so basically A1 is the only one with 2 values in it, 5 and 9 for data 1, okay? So if we look at data 1 and we call group by key 1. Now we get a multi-index series with the A's, A and B over here, and 1, 2, 1, 2 over here, and then and here this is the average of 5 and 9, and then these are technically the means of the other values, but there's only one value associated with each of these, 11, 12, and 8. Okay, but it does work, and of course you can apply any other kind of thing. And then because it's a multi-index, you can then apply, so means has a multi-index, and because of that you can then perform unstack operators and things like that. Okay, if you have another, you might have an entirely separate array, okay? Here we've got Ohio, California, California, Ohio, Ohio. They're not even part of our data frame, but you can say, I want you to form groups based on these separate arrays. The only requirement is that the array has to be the same length as your data frame. So if our data frame has 5 rows, we can create an array of length 5 that works. If I get rid of this though, then we have problems, right? So that's the only requirement, is that if you've got separate arrays of the same length, you can form groups, and you based on those. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah. So likewise, we have. And so in these cases, we were just looking at one column, okay? And then here, this is group by applied to the entire data set, not just one column. And you get similar things. So group by applied to the entire data frame, not just one column. And, whatever it might need to be accomplished. Start running out of time here, but okay. So here I have df, and I'm going to group by key 1. So let me just kind of show you what df looks like again. So this is our data frame. We've got 5 rows, and we're going to group by key 1. Okay, so we're going to form a group of A and a group for B. Okay, and we're going to say for name and group, print the name and print the group. Okay, so the group by technically creates a series of tuples that we can unpack into name and group. All right, and so I guess I can also just say print a horizontal bar just between each iteration. Okay, and so what we get is the name is A, and then the group is basically this data frame, and then the name is B, and then the group is the data frame itself. Okay, so so now if we understand that, it kind of makes sense how these group, the group by operators work, right? So when we call for mean on this, it basically sees it as separate data frames, and does that, right? And if I did the same thing based on the other key, okay, then it gives you the first key and then the second key, and you've got these kind of mini data sets as well. And so, and then whatever you need to do, if you had like specific instructions here, such as I don't know, the group dot sum or something like that. No, I gotta say print. Okay, and then oh, yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, some works on text, so that's kind of funny. And things like that. Okay, so I forget, but yeah, that also makes sense. Okay. Anyway, play around with pandas. I know it's hard to kind of try stuff, but my encouragement is go through some of these notebooks and play around with it. And just see what causes errors, see what you can do, ask yourself questions and see if you can answer them. So, okay, we'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend.